Okay, we're running over an orientation of an Airstream trailer, basic functionality for the interior and exterior of a trailer. All trailers are a little bit different. Sometimes a switch will be over here on one side versus another side. Slight differences, but for the most part, 90% it's the same functionality. We'll start with putting it on the hitch. So we have a 2 5/16 ball for this Airstream because it is a 1970 or newer model. Before 1970 for Airstream, it was a 2-inch ball. So keep that in mind, it's very important. For hooking it up, there's a few aspects over here, including the electric, the runaway brake trailer, the chains, and the latch here. To get this up, some of the older ones just lift straight up. This one, push forward, and then up. Just a little safety mechanism. Some of these are manual, this one's electric. This one will be able to go down right on top of here. Again, the 2 5/16 ball. And as soon as it goes down to it, it's just seated in. And now it's pushing down the truck. And then the jack will start lifting up any second now. And it is up. So now we have it fully seated on the ball. And we can snap this down, and we'll put a little pin in here to hold this in. Right here we have a runaway brake trailer connector. So we'll connect that to the car just for the off chance that it disconnects while driving. The trailer will stop. You have chains that you can cross over or hook directly up to the back of the truck, and you want to allow these to be a little bit loose, so for turning you don't want it too tight because they'll snap, but you don't want it too loose because you don't want it to hit the ground, so you have to make sure that they're not hitting the ground and they're not too tight. Here we have the electrical for the back brake lights, for the running lights, for the braking system for the Airstream, and you have a top notch here. You can fit it right inside of the connector, and it's the top one, so it's connected tightly. So you have all this taken care of. Right here you have the propane. You unhook the propane, and you have 2 separate tanks. Within the tank, to turn it on, you turn left, which it says open. To close it, you'll turn right to close it. Same thing with this one. Closing the tanks, open the tanks. There is one indicator typically right here that it's a black arrow that will go pointing this direction or that direction. Depending on the direction dictates which propane tank is on. So right now it's pointed towards that one. Before it was pointed towards that one. You can turn it right back over and have it pointing towards this one. So this is the propane tank that you're working off of now. To have all any of the functions inside, including the stove, the oven, it also runs the heat, and so does plug-in power run the heat, shore power. For any of those functions to be working, you'll have to have these open and pointing to the correct direction. That's key. Right down here, you have a battery. So this flips open to a battery, and you'll have a 12-volt deep cycle battery down there. You don't have to worry about any of that at this point. As long as it's functioning correctly, you don't have to worry about it. Running around the trailer, we have water. So this is for if you're going to be off the grid. That means not connected to a power supply. You open this up with a key, and in here is just a little spout, like it'll be a gas tank spout, and you just put a hose in there and you let it fill up, and when it overflows, you know it's full. Varies on how much water you have with different models. It can be as little as 20 gallons, as much as 40 or 50 gallons, depending on the model. Keep moving around. You have typically an area here where you would have a dump tank hose. Sometimes it's in here, sometimes we have it in other sections in access panel or in the bumper. This one happens not to be in here, but oftentimes it is. This is, if it fits correctly, this is where it ends up going. You have blocks for the tires. If you're going to be on off ground, You're going to want to have those there. Oftentimes though, if you are in some flat ground, you still want to put something underneath the tires, but you have less chance of rolling. But if you're any sort of off ground, absolutely put it on there before detaching it from the truck. Right here, we have access here for the hose going in for adding water to the whole system. If you actually have a hose, plug it in here, and this will allow water to run throughout the entire Airstream without the water pump being on. The force of the hose will actually force it through all the aspects of the trailer. So water pump isn't needed because it's not in the holding tank, which we just showed you how to filter water in the holding tank if you're off the grid. Right here, they sometimes have a flush. That's just for flushing out the system, but we won't go over this right now because it's not that important. Right here, you have a power outlet, and I'll show you where typically the power cord is. It's usually one of the access panels. Here, you just put it on, you give it a turn, connect it on, and this will hook directly into typically a 30 amp. Sometimes they have 50s in some Airstream, some of the older ones, and some of the bigger ones. And then you can also use a connector just to do it to a normal wall outlet, the 110. Here you have some odds and ends, and they're really not that important this day and age. One is a cable cord. If you really need cable while you're camping, there you have it. If you also need a phone jack, you have it as well. Again, not that important. Here you will have the waste disposal tube, which you'll undo this, you'll stick it on here and turn it, and it'll connect right to these little notches. It's really easy once you see it. It's a simple function. You empty the one that's closest to you first, and this one is a sewage holding tank, and then you have the wastewater holding tank. You empty the sewage holding tank first. That's because this is the toilet. This comes out first, and then when you do the wastewater tank, it clears out all the sewage. So that's pretty important because it can get very messy if you don't do it that way. You definitely want the water that comes from the sink or shower to come out second to wash out the toilet water. When you're done here, you unhook it, you put it back where it's supposed to be, either in that tube or the back bumper, and then you have these closed up, you put the cap back on, you're done. Moving around, every corner you have stabilizers. So you have a little thing that looks like where a jack would go onto, and in the back bumper we have the connector that you basically turn, you connect it on, you turn it, and then legs come down on either corner, every corner of the trailer. So at that point you have it stable, so when you're walking around it's not moving around a lot. You get it down to a pretty sturdy point, and you can even lift up sides if they're uneven with that. And you can also level the entire trailer with the front jack by going up and down, so that will level it in this respect. The side jacks can level it on the side respects. Moving to the back side of the trailer. These access panels are oftentimes on the side. This one happens to be on the back, and there's typically access back here. So back here now we have the sewage tanks, which I mentioned before. We actually have two of them back here, probably why the one wasn't in the front. And then we have, as well, we have a mechanism that keeps this open, and sometimes difficult to shut. And then we have this access panel, which has the jack leveling, which goes into each corner to level down, as I mentioned before. You have a power cord, a 30 amp power cord that gets connected to what I mentioned before as well, in regard to the side power outlet. And then you have a clean water hose which hooks up to the water as well, which I mentioned before. So these are just a few of the extra parts that are in the outside storage compartment, most likely. Moving around, don't have to worry about this. This is just an access panel for fixing. It gets hot sometimes. It's for the furnace. This is the back side of the refrigerator. Again, access panels which you typically don't have to access. unless you're actually doing a repair. Opening the door, the latch right here. Remember that there's a latch. Oftentimes people just try to force things in Airstreams, when in reality there's a rhyme or reason to why it's not shutting. This latch is one of them. Unlatch the latch and you shut it. A lot of the latches inside as well for cabinets are the same way. There's a reason why it's sometimes easy to open or hard to open, and same way to shut. There's oftentimes a latch that you would have to unlatch with the refrigerator, cabinets, doors. Just be careful. Coming in here, there's a couple different types of steps. This one just pulls out. Sometimes there's ones that you have to pull out, and there's another flip that goes here for another step. So just keep in mind that there's, again, just like all Airstreams, there's a few different models, and they switch it up quite a bit. So this one's just easy. With the awning, awning's pretty simple, but it takes 1 or 2 times to figure it out. Typically, there are screws to unscrew here. You want to do this, and it pops off the side. There's one over there too. Same deal. Just a screw that pops off the side. From there, there's typically at least one latch that you have to unlatch. So you unlatch this. I'm not going to do it right now, but that's easy to do. This unscrews, pops over again. At that point, this opens up. It'll open up about 5 feet, so you'll have a little bit of a canopy. At that point, you have these hooks down here. And this is the key, and this is the part that's a little bit difficult if you haven't done it before. These hooks swing around, and they go up right into this little section there, right by the swivel. So that's the shit. That's the stop for now.